All right, good afternoon. I'll call this Public Properties Committee meeting to order. We have two items on today's agenda. The first one is the MCRC marketing discussion, and the second one is the Ray Millard Park Capital Bill grant. Jansen, I'll let you or Christy start with the first item, MCRC marketing.
Thank you. So obviously, the rec center was affected pretty badly by the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're still experiencing challenges that have developed because of that. So a lot of time that we spent since basically November of last year was trying to figure out plans to reconnect with past, present, and current patrons at the rec. Part of that that we've been working on is how to reconnect, and a lot of what we're doing today with free events that we had in the winter, free events that we're having in the summer, is to connect with the community and get the Medina Rec image improved, because we want to be the fun place. And the request that's here today is part of that. We're approaching 20-year anniversary at the Rec Center, and we want to rebrand and change the image, both of the name and the facility. The name being, we don't want to just be the MCRC. We don't want to just be a building. We want to be a place to connect with the community. The facility being exactly what it is. It's a very well maintained, and I don't say that lightly, it's very well maintained, but it is 20 years old and is a little bit institutionalized when it comes to the aesthetics. So what we want to try to do is establish a new logo, change our image. Once we get that established, then carry that into the facility, be it with upgrades, not only to equipment and capital improvements, but changing the color and the appearance when you walk in, so that it looks like a new building, a new image, and can kind of carry that into what we do every day. Hopefully more so when we get a few more full-time people back. But we feel like there's a lot of opportunity, especially with the debt service falling off soon, that now more than ever we need to really be pushing our image and marketing to get our patrons back, connect with those that have never been there before, and hopefully be able to retain them by continuing to improve. That's not to say that the rec center has been a bad place at all. We just want to change that image with the opportunity that we have. Christy will give you some details on the numbers of what the marketing that we've done to date through programs and outreach has accomplished. But what we're looking for today is just some general guidance on what you would like to see with a logo. Obviously, MCRC, the acronym, has been kind of what we're known for. That does sometimes get confused with the Medina Community Center, more often than not. And looking at what other rec centers are doing, they're not, they all have different names. It might be an individual, it might be a variety of different things, but we're looking for some guidance. Can we deviate away from the Medina Community Recreation Center and just be known as the Medina Rec? When we think about community, personally, I don't feel that it needs to be in the name. I want the image of the rec. I want the rec center to be in the community, not community just in the name. So I think that's important. And we feel if we can get some guidance on if we can deviate away from that, we'd like to get a logo designed and then bring it back, because we want to carry that logo and the color scheme throughout the facility, with window clings, with vinyl graphics to help establish our brand, if you will. Similar to, when you think of the Medina City Schools and you look at the buildings and you see stickers and you see wraps even on the administration office, it helps. And as we're looking to do more outside, I think that this is a good place to start. I'll hand it over to Christy for some of the specifics. I got to give her and the staff most of the credit for everything that we're doing with the limited people that we have. So I'll turn that over to her with what they've been able to accomplish so far with our marketing efforts.
The big question is, how are we doing in comparison to a normal year? So I just wanted to say I'm pretty proud that we're at about 65% of our normal revenues, and our membership number is right around 62%. And that's going up about 5 to 8% each month. So we're pretty sure we're going to be at the 70% mark in the fall, and hopefully around 90% by the end of the year. So we're making great strides. It's very busy. We're getting a lot more traffic through the doors. It's nowhere to where it was before, but it's gaining. And I think with all of the new changes and all the new programs, we're just going to be getting more and more people through the doors. So, our summer camp is exactly where it was 2 years ago, revenue-wise. But what is interesting is our sports have doubled. We've actually made 2.5 times the revenue in our sports from all of the new programs. So I think it's working. We've added a lot of these parties in the parks and fun events that we don't normally do, like dodgeball and Nerf night and things like that. And what we found from the registration numbers is that 85% of the people that sign up for these are not members. So we're bringing them in, and it's starting to work. So we just want to carry it through and get the new logo, get the new color scheme, and get a new image.
One other thing that I wanted to add, it's important to note that it's some of the improvements that we have are also part of our marketing plan and to connect with past and present members. We talked about it at the budget hearing. We are working actively on fitness equipment replacement schedule that we're hoping to do and implement here pretty soon. We have a number of projects that are going to happen during shutdown that I know are going to draw in people that have recently been approved for upgrades in our leisure pool, and also looking at how to utilize the existing space that we have at the rec center, hopefully with carry forward funds to repurpose areas that are underutilized. Our community room A, which is the largest one, has been overflow for fitness equipment and spin classes. We're hoping that a project to install new flooring in that area and have it be an upfront kind of a showcase class will help draw those that are using the facility. They can see people doing it. We'll draw them into the program. And we're also looking to bring back rentals and repurposing our cafe into a party room to alleviate a lot of the issues we have with people who have birthday parties but use the swimming pool. So trying to utilize the square footage that we have the best we can. The other piece is updating our front desk area and creating a commons area like there used to be several years ago for our senior groups and those utilizing and waiting in line for classes to sit and wait. So we want to change our brand, bring people in, do cosmetic updates that are pretty easy by just splashing the building with some color. But our first step is to get approval on and some guidance on how to move forward with a new logo.
So maybe I'll start with some questions, Jansen. Have you talked to the Rec Advisory yet, or are you starting with us and then going to them as far as the branding?
So we have talked about it with Rec Advisory Committee. We explained our marketing strategies. We've talked with Chris Qualich and John Burkhart about some improvements that we're hoping to do during shutdown, which is coming up beginning of August. Really what we're waiting on is we need to know, are you okay deviating from MCRC, or is that what we need to work with to give a graphic designer an artistic freedom?
And the reason I ask that is I'm not sure on the Rec Center Advisory Board versus, John and I are probably the two that have been on here the longest. The community piece, I'm sure, I don't know if somebody told you, that was to reflect that it was the entire school district that paid for part of that building. It wasn't just the city of Medina that paid for it. So that's where that community word comes from early on, that it wasn't just the city, but it was the entire school district, which is Montville, Medina Township, Lafayette Township. So I don't know if anybody shared that piece with you, or if you knew that was the whole reason that community was added in there. So I guess I want to make sure we think about that, and maybe I'm a little biased because I work for the school district too, but that was to reflect that it wasn't just the city of Medina money that built that building.
And I agree with you, Jim. I mean, that was a big, selling point for the taxpayers, the school board, that it was going to be a joint effort that was going to benefit the entire community, including the school district, so. But I understand your reasoning for.
And I will tell you, my other thing I wanted to share with you, that I don't think in 20 years I've heard many people refer to it as the Medina Community Rec Center. Yeah, some people say MCRC, but you know what they mainly say? They say the rec center. That's what I hear more than anything. It's just a plain old rec center. I don't even hear Medina in there.
Yeah.
Or the rec, yeah. So I don't know. Again, maybe it's not just me that needs to weigh in on the community piece, but I understand what you're saying, why you maybe would want to go in a different direction than to have that, but there is some history behind it.
Okay. Would you be open to, if we had a tagline at the bottom that involved the word community? Say it'd be like the Medina Rec, a community, or something with the word community in it?
Sure. When we first hatched this whole project at the high school and the rec center, it was called a building of community partnerships, to kind of reflect that all the different people that were involved in this. The hospital was originally involved. We were trying to get the library involved at the time. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I guess I'm just saying we probably need to talk to the schools a little bit more. And I'm not even sure Chris and John knew that history. That's why I asked you when they talked about it at the rec center. And I usually try to always read the advisory committee minutes, and I guess I missed that one because and I'm trying to think who's still on the rec advisory board. Jane Anderson would have been a good one, but she's not on there anymore. I know, like some of those original people, because that was a big discussion point. But yeah, I get it though. I understand marketing. I know you want it to be something catchy. So, but I just have a feeling it's probably a bigger discussion than just council too. We probably owe it to the school board.
Okay.
To talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we can keep working with, we're just at a little bit of a challenge because you can only get so many free designs before you need to, you request to tweak something back and forth.
When is your next advisory board member or meeting?
Tomorrow morning, 7:30.
It might be, I can certainly talk to John and Chris tonight, and maybe it be a topic that you talk about tomorrow. And then again, I'm probably going to let other people on council weigh in a little bit more, just because I understand why it was added. I'll just say that. I was very much a part of that early on.
Yeah. And we're just, when you only have 4 letters to work with, you can't really be very creative with it. So that's the challenge when we're trying to, because we want to have a logo, because it's going to be on everybody's shirts when you come to the facility. And we want to have it up, the front of the building just says the Medina Community Rec. So we want to color it up and make it creative and carry it into the facility. And what we've found out with working with a few people is, you get 4 letters, 4 different colors, and a picture of the gazebo, and it's kind of challenging. But maybe we'll explore some taglines that could be incorporated with it. I think those are good points to bring up, and if you'd like, we can try and get a few more designs and once we have more information and go from there. Would the committee be okay with at least acknowledging the colors scheme that we have there? Because I feel like there are a lot of what we're trying to do, we can do now and then establish the logo later.
I would say from my point of view, the colors are great. There's no history behind those, so I just wanted you to know the history of the one word.
And would you consider dropping center? Medina Community Rec?
Well, I guess the problem we're having with the word community is we're getting confused with the community center on a daily basis. We get phone calls all day long about the community center, and that's causing a problem for us. We want to stand out as a recreation center and not the community center where the vaccinations had taken place. So that's kind of what spurred this on. We just wanted to get that out of there so that we have our standalone ID. You know, I don't intend to change the full name, and the Medina Community Recreation Center is the real name. That would be on all of our real paperwork and things like that. But I just wanted Medina Rec Center or Medina Rec on the shirt logos and all the signage for all of the events and things. Something that was simple and to the point and made us stand out. So it's actually keeping the whole name, but just having a little more visual impact with it.
I get it, it's KFC. It's like Kentucky Fried Chicken, I mean, I get it. Yeah. No, and I do like that. I guess that helps me a little bit to know too. It's not changing anything formally, it's just what you use for marketing purposes. And probably in the phone book, you probably need to change the name in the phone book, if you're getting calls about the community center from the fairgrounds. Yeah. Bill, anything?
No, I understand what you're trying to do and appreciate, Jim, because you've got a history, bringing that up. The other thing you can do, though, is you could keep the initial, like the MCRC, you could keep that, and the tagline could actually then follow and be the image that you're looking for. Because MCRC is just could be the acronym, and then below it could be something that directly relates to what you're doing. But I'm sure you'll come up with something that's good.
I think we understand what you're trying to do and are supportive of that. I was going to say to John or Paul, any thoughts? And John, you were here. John, you'll remember some of these conversations early on.
Yeah, I remember the conversations, and I remember the controversy related to the recreation center. It wasn't something that everybody wanted. So I think I also get the fact that the taglines, you're right, you have to have something catchy, something fresh, because people always want that. But I do understand the history, as Jim's talking about, and somehow, I understand the community part of it, and the advertising may be confusing to some, and it is a recreation center first and foremost, so it's all about fitness. So, come to the rec and stuff, I think that's a great marketing tagline to use. But I agree that in the formal paperwork, you still have to call it the Medina Community Recreation Center. I think it has to stay like that.
I was just a mere resident at the time. I don't have all of this history, but I do know that when we were talking about it amongst friends, the community part did stand out, and that's what helped us in my group of friends decide to vote for it. So, but I agree with John. To have the catchy, like the rec I think would be good, but then keep the MCRC in there someplace as well. Okay.
So I would suggest if you can talk a little bit tomorrow at the rec advisory, we actually have a school board meeting tomorrow night too, so Dr. Kwolek and I can kind of bring it to them too and talk about this meeting and talk about the rec advisory and just let them know where we're heading, that it's not formally changing, it's just the tagline, the marketing, if I'm understanding you correctly. Like, nothing legally is changing. It's always going to still be the Medina Community Rec Center. It's just how you market it, what's on the logos, advertising, something catchier.
Yeah, something that will fit on all of our newspapers and our banners and things. So we just wanted to get away from the MCRC, technically those initials, because it's hard to say. So we just want to do with Medina Rec Center, and we'll keep the official name.
Mayor, anything? Anybody from the public? All right, sounds good. The second item is the grant for Ray Mellard Park. And Jared, if you want to, I'm Jared, I'm sorry, Jansen, if you want to start with that.
Thank you. So this request is to review the concept plan that was developed with the help from Environmental Design Group for the beginning phases of the implementation of the capital bill grant that we applied for via Resolution 19919. The parking lot and the dog park was identified as project number 3 and 4 for the grant cycle that we applied for. Once we found out that those grants were awarded, I talked with Patton and thought there might be some synergy of the two projects being completed simultaneously to, one, help on the costs, and two, obviously, I wanted to develop a concept plan to figure out the best way to lay both of those out on the property, which is why we engaged the help of Environmental Design Group, who does a lot of this type of work. So just a review of the funding. The budget for the dog park is in the neighborhood of $70,000, and the parking lot expansion, $142,000. These two projects are covered by 50%. Is that correct, Barbara? By the grant? We have to spend more than the 71,000 that's allocated. Okay, yeah. So ODNR keeps 2% of the grant for their administration fee. When looking at the project, you have the concept plan in front of you. Is that correct? It was in the packet?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So we had two meetings on site during 2020 and one as of recent. And what we're trying to accomplish, so back in 2016, we really started to get a lot of complaints about the condition of the dog park at Memorial Park. That was funded in large part by community donations, and it was installed in the detention basin at Memorial Park, which at the time, you know, it was underutilized space. The fence was erected. There's 2 sections that were created along with an entry vegetable area where you bring your dogs in, you take them off leash, then you open the gates and you go into the whatever section you prefer. Throughout the course of time, we installed some benches, and then this was all prior to me taking over the department. The surface situation started to deteriorate pretty substantially. We have a lot of challenges there. One, there's large shade trees. It's an area that holds water, and you have high activity with foot traffic from dogs. On the south side of that property, you have a very steep hill that the dogs can run up, but it does pose issues for owners that might not be the most stable on their feet. And as the surface continued to deteriorate, we were trying to find options to renovate or repair. Our options were pretty limited with the amount of shade and foot traffic that we had, and you have to have 2 sections for big dogs and small dogs. So we couldn't really close off a section and try and renovate it. So our solution was to put down pea gravel, about almost 20 tons of it, and then put in some 6x6 timber retaining landscape timbers. As years have went on, that pea gravel has now ended up in the grass, and it's it's not a very good situation. So when looking at opportunities in other parks, we have a very large area at Ray Mallard Park. We have a series of inner working trails. We have support facilities. We have proposed here is parking lot expansion of 25 new spaces. So we would have a total of 40 spaces in total at that parking lot, 2 of them being handicap. We also have the permanent restroom facility with running water. We have a pavilion nearby, and on Monday, we're going to have a contractor completing the fitness loop, which is a quarter-mile paved path around the park. So knowing all of those moving parts, we worked with Environmental Design Group. We identified basically 3 sections for the dog park. You'll see on the plan there's a star which identifies where the entry area would be. So you come up to this area, there'll be entry and exit gates for the large dog area, and then entry and exit for the small dog area. These areas are much larger than what we have at Memorial Park, and what it allows us to do is put in proper drainage with the project to make sure that any surface water that we get that would collect runs off, as well as it gives us an opportunity when one area starts to deteriorate, we can take it offline, close it, reseed it, renovate it, allow the grass to get reestablished, and alternate. So when the areas start to deteriorate, you're not left with mud and soup and a big problem. So having that turnover, the people I was working with Environmental Design Group said that that's helped alleviate a lot of the compaction issues that we have. So when looking at that with the larger spaces, what we would also be interested in down the road, given an opportunity for more funding, would be to introduce things like agility, ramps, tubes, tunnels, things like that, that we can't really do at Memorial because we're limited with space and the condition of the area. So the other piece outside of this particular project, but it is noted on the concept plan, is looking at Ray Mallard Park from more of a environmental and appearance perspective. There's several low-lying wet areas and a couple areas that we identified to form some mounded sections that can have native plantings on them to create natural buffers between the park and the apartment property, as well as reduce maintenance. When looking at Ray Mallard Park, if you go there, we mow almost the entire park. It takes a better portion of a day with a full crew. So we're looking to eliminate that, reduce it, get some pollinator habitat back in there where it's vegetation that we'd have to maintain seasonally rather than every day or every week. I did work on this with the help of Tom James, who now is employed with Environmental Design Group, and he shared a lot of his trials and errors and experiences that they had at Carolyn Mugridge Park when they designed and implemented that a few years ago. So basically what we're looking for at this point is approval of the concept plan so that we can then move forward with design and engineering for the project, because I believe we have till 2022 to complete the project for this state capital bill cycle.
I guess the first question is, let's talk about the city match. You have that in your budget?
I do not have that in the budget, and that was discussed in 2019 when we decided to do all of these projects. I did fund the multi-purpose trail on Reagan Parkway, the carry forward, that was in the neighborhood of $90,000. A lot of these projects that we've done with grant funding, I have continued to fund with our carry forward funds. when we were asked to find projects for the state capital bill cycle and present it, we presented a wish list, and there were a number of other projects on there. And it was my understanding at that time that the council was aware that if we were to get awarded, the funding would be in question.
You are correct, we did talk about that. I didn't know if anything had changed, and
I didn't forget that.
oh, I didn't mean that you forgot it, but I thought maybe things had improved and you had some extra carry forward, because you have been very good. I appreciate on the multipurpose trail and things where you've come up with the money. You've done a good job with stretching the funds and doing a lot for the parks with what you have to work with. Okay, how about questions first from the committee?
Well, first of all, I will share the dog park plan with my dog when I go home. I spent a lot of years at that dog park at Memorial Pool, and the way you described its deterioration is absolutely accurate. I haven't been there now for years because it was just not someplace it was kind of like if you pulled off when you were tired and you wanted to, get a good night's rest, and you saw the motel and you turned around and decided you really weren't sleepy. It just was not it didn't work out there.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah, thanks. So, thank you. So the plan for the dog park, I think, is terrific, because I've done that with my dog in other dog parks, and it really matters, the condition of the park and how it's maintained. And like everything else here that we, one of the great things that we do is maintain all our facilities and our parks, but the dog park just was not maintainable. And I think the rest of the plan is really smart. I mean, you really you're adding value to the park. It's in a great area to be used. There's a lot of property. I like the pollinators, the pollinating idea. So you don't have to mow excessively. The biggest crop, do you know what the biggest crop is every year in the United States? Grass. Grass is the biggest crop, and if you can reduce that and do it in a way that where you don't really need to have the grass, you can save a ton of money. Yeah, so I mean, I'm all for it. I love the way it's laid out, and I'm sure that the expanded parking is really a critical part of the ability to make good use of that park with folks that don't live right in the proximity. So I'm all for it.
Benny?
And I agree with everything that Bill just said. I mean, I think the conceptual plan here is right up to what we need and what you explained when we first discussed the deal with the school on the house on the northeast corner of the park, and the deal we worked out with the school with that to expand the parking, and obviously, everything that you said is correct about the dog park. It's deteriorating it at its current location. It's not large enough, and I agree with when we discussed it prior. We knew there was going to be matching funds, so thanks for all your hard work.
Mr. Coyne or Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What is the total amount of the grant award again? I don't have it in front of me. And what is the total amount of the project?
There are two grants, one is $35,000, the other is $71,000. So they're basically half of what we estimated the cost.
Okay, and I know that Ward 1 has about 40,000?
It's about 38.
38, okay, that was pretty close. So you're still short probably 30,000 or so, 35,000.
Now, one of the things we did talk about early on too, especially maybe with the dog park, is the mayor and I had suggested that we could talk to a couple of the foundations or even the parking lot, because we did talk about it. It doesn't benefit just the park. It also benefits the Let's Make a Difference program that is there. There's lots of things that will serve us well with expanding that parking lot there too. So I know we're both committed to coming up with some funds possibly.
And I know we already made a determination on how to use the CDBG funds, but that would have complied with this Ward 1 area. You could probably use some of that grant money to put towards it, I would imagine.
The other thing, when looking at the numbers,
I was going to say, Barbara, are we allowed to use any of that money if we've already got a grant? Doesn't this have to be city money?
I think she just said we'd have to
Oh.
spend $1 more than what we're getting.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if we can use that funds, maybe we could, but I'm just saying the CDBG funds are utilized for low-income areas, and this falls within that. I know, that, we've already allocated.
Oh,
funds,
but
it
you're
could
talking,
be.
John, future CDGB
Could be,
budgets?
yes,
Okay,
right.
is another possibility.
The other thing, when looking at those estimates, those were done before we decided to, there would be a cost benefit to couple these two projects together and also leave most of the spoils from excavation on site. So I'm pretty confident those are very conservative numbers. Until we get into the design and the engineering estimate. I mean, a dog park it can be done pretty cheaply, or it can be done very nicely. So we have a lot of flexibility with that. Fencing's not that much, concrete, a little bit of concrete and some drainage work. So until we take the next steps, I think we could really tighten up those numbers.
That's what I'd like to hear.
How about, Mr. Rose, anything?
Thank you. Thank you for enlightening me, Jensen, on the deterioration. It has been a while since I've been over there, but I do know that I've received some comments that some of the regular users of the dog park are going to be disappointed that they're going to have to go further. They like the central location, but I think now with this additional information that I have, it should be easy to sell them. So thank you.
And I think you're right, Paul, that's what we looked at originally when we put it at Memorial Pool, is that it was a good central location. I think this is the next best central location as far as plus space, and the level ground was an asset for this. And we put the dog park together pretty quickly with the idea that other communities were doing it, and we were getting a lot of requests to have something like that, and it really did make sense at the time, but I don't think we ever saw how popular it was going to be, and so, and we haven't done a lot in the last couple of years, knowing that we were going to look at a bigger plan here, Jansen, if I'm correct. That's part of the reason, too, where it might not look as great as it has in the past, but
Yeah, we had a fencing project, about a $20,000 complete replacement in concrete at Memorial Park, and we pulled it after we were aware of this grant cycle going on, just because the fence needed replaced, but it didn't make sense if we didn't have a plan for the surface.
Well, and I can also say, during this heat of the summer thus far, Memorial Pool, we'll talk about that in the next budget, the parking lot has been filled with pool patrons, and actually flowed over into there are a lot of parking on the streets now, so this may eliminate some of the dog park users. If we expand the parking lot at Ray Mallard, that won't have as much problem finding parking, especially in the summer months, so.
One other thing to note that for the public, there's been a lot of development and improvement over on Huntington Street with senior living, as well as the Union Square apartments. I was out at Mellert today for a pre-construction meeting for our fitness trail, and there was a resident who had a dog and was walking, and I had asked him some questions, and he said they allow dogs in Union Square now, and there's 20-plus dogs that are there. And he was really excited to hear that this was a possibility.
Good.
we do have members of the community. Any comments or questions?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Well, if no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve the concept plan so Jansen can move forward with that.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. All right, any other, I know we have to have a budget meeting here, and I know Mrs. Halleck gave me an email just before we started here to talk about a subcommittee with the parks, and I will follow up on that with you and talk to Jansen, the administration, and the rest of council, but today we are moving into a budget meeting, so. Yep. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
And